Hi, hello. Welcome back to i-Tutor NCERT series. Today's class, we are going to discuss Class 11 Geography NCERT, Chapter 4 Distribution of Oceans and Continents. First one, the continental drift. Many scientists consider the possibility of two Americas, Europe and Africa, to be once joined together. Okay, so once the scientists think that the Americas, then Europe and Africa, they are together. From the known record of the history of science, it was Abraham Ortelius, a Dutch mapmaker, who first proposed such a possibility as early as 1596. Antonio Pellegrini drew a map showing the three continents together. However, it was Alfred Wegener. Okay, it was Alfred Wegener, a German meteorologist, who put forth a comprehensive argument in the form of the continental drift theory. Okay, so it is the continental drift theory in 1912. This was regarding the distribution of the oceans and the continents. Okay, so what is the continental drift theory? It was regarding the distribution of oceans and the continents. According to Wegener, all the continents formed a single continental mass and mega oceans around the same. Okay, so he considered all the continent as a single continental mass. Okay, this is continent. Okay, all the continent as a single continental mass, and it was surrounded by a mega ocean. Okay, this continent was surrounded by a mega ocean, and the supercontinent was named Pangaea. Okay, so this continent, this is named Pangaea. Okay, and which means all earth, and the mega ocean was called Panthalassa. Okay, this mega ocean was called Panthalassa, meaning all water. Okay, so Pangaea meaning all earth and Panthalassa meaning all water. He argued that around 200 million years ago, the supercontinent Pangaea began to split. Okay, so around 200 million years ago, the supercontinent that began to split. Pangaea first broke into two large continental masses as Laurasia and Gondwana land, forming the northern and southern components respectively. Okay, so then he said what happened? This Pangaea, okay, this continental mass began to separate and it forms two big masses. First one is called Laurasia and second one is called Gondwana land. Okay, and the Laurasia is in the north and Gondwana land in the south. Subsequently, Laurasia and Gondwana land continued to break into various smaller continents that exist today. Okay, so these two continents, that Laurasia and Gondwana, they further divided. Okay, and forms or they further break down into various smaller continents that exist today. A variety of evidences was offered in support of the continental drift. Some of these are given below. Okay, so now let's check the evidence of the support of continental drift. First one, the matching of continents, that is jigsaw fit. The shoreline of Africa and South America facing each other have a remarkable and unmistakable match. Okay, so the shoreline of Africa and South America, they are facing each other, have a remarkable and unmistakable match. Okay, they have a match. It may be noted that a map produced using a computer program to find the best fit of the Atlantic margin was presented by Bullard in 1964. It proved to be quite perfect. The match was tried at 1000 fathom lines instead of the present shoreline. Okay, so that is the first one, that is the matching of continents, that is jigsaw fit. Second one, rocks of same age across the ocean. The radiometric dating methods developed in the recent period have facilitated correlating the rock formation from different continents across the vast ocean. The belt of ancient rock of 2000 million years ago from Brazil coast matches with those of Western Africa. Okay, so the ancient rocks of 2000 million years from Brazil coast, that matches with the Western Africa. The earliest marine deposits along the coastline of South America and Africa are of the Jurassic Age. This suggests that the ocean did not exist prior to that time. Okay, so that is the second one, rocks of same age across the ocean. Now, third one is tillite. What is tillite? It is the sedimentary rock formed out of deposits of glaciers. Okay, so tillite means it's a sedimentary rock formed out of deposits of glaciers. The Gondwana system of sediments from India is known to have its counterpart in 6 different landmasses of the southern hemisphere. Okay, so the Gondwana system of sediments from India that is known to have its counterpart in 6 different landmasses of the southern hemisphere. At the base, this system has thick tillite, indicates extensive and prolonged glaciation. Counterparts of this succession are found in Africa, Falkland Island, Madagascar, Antarctica and Australia. Overall resemblance of the Gondwana type sediments clearly demonstrate that these landmasses have remarkably similar histories. The glacial tillite provide unambiguous evidence of paleoclimatic and also drifting of continents. Now, placer deposits. The occurrence of rich placer deposits of gold in the Ghana coast and the absolute absence of source rock in this region is an amazing fact. The gold-bearing veins are in Brazil, and it is obvious that the gold deposits of the Ghana are derived from the Brazilian plateau when the two continents lay side by side. Okay, so the third one is the placer deposit, because the placer deposit of gold in the Ghana coast. Okay, and the absolute absence of source rock in this region is the amazing fact. So they considered once the Brazil plateau and the Ghana plateau are lay side by side. Okay. Distribution of fossils. When identical species of plants and animals adapted to living on land or in fresh water are found on either side of the margin of the marine barriers, a problem arises regarding accounting for such distribution. The observations that lemurs occur in India, Madagascar, and Africa led some to consider a contiguous landmark, Lemuria, linking these three landmasses. Mesosaurus was a small reptile adapted to shallow brackish water. The skeleton of these are found only in two localities, the southern Cape province of South Africa and the Irava Formation of Brazil. The two localities are presently 4,800 km apart with an ocean in between them. Okay, so the next one is the distribution of fossil. Now, force for drifting. Wagner suggested that the movement responsible for the drifting of the continents was caused by pole fleeing force. Okay, that is by pole fleeing force and tidal force. The polar fleeing force relates to the rotation of the Earth. You are aware of the fact that the Earth is not a perfect sphere. It's a bulge at the equator. This bulge is due to the rotation of the Earth. The second force that was suggested by Wagner, that is the tidal force, is due to the attraction of the moon and the sun that develops tides in the oceanic water. Wagner believed that these forces would become effective when applied over many million years. However, most of scholars considered these forces to be totally inadequate. Okay, so Wagner suggests that the force, that is mainly pole fleeing force and the tidal force, is causing for the drifting. Now, post-drift studies. It is interesting to note that for continental drift, most of the evidences was collected from the continental areas in the form of distribution of flora and fauna or deposits like tillite. A number of discoveries during the post-World War II period added new information to geological literature. Particularly, the information collected from the oceanic floor mapping provided new dimensions for the study of distribution of oceans and continents. Now, conventional current theory. Arthur Holmes in 1930s discussed the possibility of convection currents operating in the mantle portion. These currents are generated due to radioactive elements causing thermal differences in the mantle portion. Holmes argued that there exists a system of such currents in the entire mantle portion. This was an attempt to provide an explanation to the issues of force, on the basis of which contemporary scientists discarded the continental drift theory. So, next one is the mapping of the ocean floor. Detailed research of the ocean configuration revealed that the ocean floor is not just a vast plain, but it's full of relief. Expeditions to map the oceanic floor in the post-World War II period provided a detailed picture of the ocean relief and indicates the existence of submerged mountain ranges as well as deep trenches, mostly located closer to the continent margins. The mid-oceanic ridges were found to be most active in terms of volcanic eruption. Okay, so the mid-oceanic ridges, or MOR, were found to be most active in terms of volcanic eruptions. The dating of the rocks from the oceanic crust reveals the fact that they are much younger than the continental area. Rocks on either side of the crust of oceanic ridges and having equidistant locations from the crust were found to have remarkable similarities both in terms of their constituent and their age. The ocean floor configuration. The ocean floor may be segmented into three major divisions based on the depth as well as the form of relief. These divisions are continental margins, deep sea basins, and mid-oceanic ridges. Okay, so there is three types of classification. Ocean floor may be segmented into three major divisions. First one, continental margin; second one, deep sea basin; and third one, mid-oceanic ridges. First one is continental margins. What is continental margins? These form the transition between continental shore and the deep sea basins. Okay, so these continental margins, these form transition between continental shore and deep sea basin. They include continental shelf, continental slope, continental rise, and deep oceanic trenches. Okay, so the continental margin include continental shelf, continental slope, continental rise, and deep oceanic trenches. Of these, the deep oceanic trenches are the areas which are of considerable interest in so far as the distribution of ocean and continents is concerned. Now, next one is abyssal plains. These are extensive plains that lie between the continental margins and the mid-oceanic ridges. Okay, so what is abyssal plain? They are extensive plain, okay, lie between the continental margins and the mid-oceanic ridges. The abyssal plains are the area where the continental sediments have moved beyond the margins get deposited. Okay, so the abyssal plains, these are the areas where continental sediments that move beyond the margins, they get deposits. Okay. Now, final one is mid-oceanic ridges. Okay, or MOR. More. Mid-oceanic ridges. This forms an interconnected chain of mountain system within the ocean. Okay, so mid-oceanic ridges means it's an interconnected chain of mountain system within the ocean, inside the ocean. It is the longest mountain chain of the surface of the earth, though submerged under the oceanic water. Okay, they are submerged under the oceanic water, but still they are the longest mountain chain within the surface of earth. Okay. It is characterized by a central rift system at the crest, a fractionated plateau and a flank zone all along its length. The rift system at the crest is the zone of intense volcanic activity. Okay, so this is the zone of intense volcanic activity. Now, in the previous chapter, you have been introduced to the types of volcanoes as mid-oceanic volcanoes. Okay, so we already discussed about the types of volcanoes in the previous chapter. Now, distribution of earthquake and volcanoes. You will notice that a line of dots in the central part of the Atlantic Ocean, almost parallel to the coastline. It further extends into the Indian Ocean. It bifurcates a little south of the Indian subcontinent, with one branch moving into East Africa and the other meeting a similar line of Myanmar to New Guinea. You will notice that this line of dots coincides with the mid-oceanic ridges. Okay, so they coincide with the mid-oceanic ridges or the more. Now, the shaded belt showing another area of concentration coincides with the Alpine Himalayan system and the rim of Pacific Ocean. In general, the foci of the earthquake in the areas of mid-oceanic ridges are at shallow depths, whereas along the Alpine Himalayan belts as well as the rim of Pacific belts, the earthquakes are deep-seated ones. The maps of volcanoes also shows a similar pattern. The rim of Pacific is also called rim of fire due to the existence of active volcanoes in the area. Okay, so that's about the distribution of earthquakes and volcanoes. Now, the concept of seafloor spreading. As mentioned above, the post-drift studies provide considerable information that was not available at the Wegener's put forth his concept of continental drift. Particularly, the mapping of the ocean floor and paleomagnetic studies of rocks from oceanic region revealed the following facts. First one, it was revealed that all along the mid-oceanic ridges, volcanic eruptions are common and they bring huge amount of lava to the surface. Okay, so all along the MOR or mid-oceanic ridges, the volcanic eruptions are common and they bring huge amount of lava to the surface of its area, to the surface in its area. Second one, the rocks equidistant on either sides of the crust of mid-oceanic ridges show remarkable similarities in terms of period of formation, chemical composition and magnetic properties. Now, rocks closer to the mid-oceanic ridges have normal polarity are the youngest. The age the rocks increases as one moves away from the crust. Okay, so the age of rocks increases as one moves away from the crust. Now, third one is the ocean crust rocks are much younger than the continental rocks. Okay, so the ocean crust rocks are much younger. Okay, so that shows that they are forming. Okay, their new rocks are forming. The age of rocks in the oceanic crust is now more than 200 million years old. Some of the continental rock formation are as old as 3200 million years. Fourth one, the sediments on the ocean floor are unexpectedly very thin. Scientists were expecting, if the ocean floors were as old as the continent, to have a complete sequence of sediments for a period of much longer duration. However, nowhere was the sediments column found to be older than 200 million years. Now, the deep trenches have deep-seated earthquake occurrence, while in the mid-oceanic ridge areas, the quake foci has shallow depth. Okay. Now, these facts and the detailed analysis of magnetic properties of the rocks on either side of the mid-oceanic ridges led Hess to propose his hypothesis known as sea floor spreading. Okay, so that is known as sea floor spreading. Hess argued that constant eruptions at the crest of oceanic ridges cause the rupture of the oceanic crust and the new lava wedges into it. Pushing the oceanic crust on either side, the ocean floor thus spreads. The younger age of the oceanic crust, as well as the fact that the spreading of one ocean does not cause the shrinking of the other, made Hess think about the consumption of the oceanic crust. He further maintained that the ocean floor that gets pushed due to the volcanic eruptions at the crust sinks down at the oceanic trenches and gets consumed. Now, plate tectonics. Since the advent of the concept of seafloor spreading, the interest in the problem of distribution of oceans and continents was revived. It was in 1967 Mackenzie and Parker and also Morgan they independently collected the available ideas and they came out with another concept termed plate tectonics. Okay, so a tectonic plate, that is also called a lithospheric plate. The tectonic plate is also called lithospheric plate. That's a massive, irregularly shaped slab of solid rocks and that's generally composed of both continental and ocean lithosphere. Okay, so what's a tectonic plate? A tectonic plate, it's also called a lithosphere plate, and it's a massive irregular shaped slab of solid rock, and it's generally composed of mainly continental and ocean lithosphere. Now, plates move horizontally over the asthenosphere as rigid units. Okay, so we already discussed about the asthenosphere. It's a liquid, a jelly area. So it's very easy to float in this area. The lithosphere includes the crust and top mantle with its thickness range varying between 5 to 100 km in the oceanic parts and about 200 km in the continental area. A plate may be referred to as the continental plate or oceanic plate depending on which of the two occupy a larger portion of the plate. Pacific plate is largely an oceanic plate, whereas the Eurasian plate may be called continental plate. Okay, because how we referred it, because if the continental plate or oceanic plate are depending on which the two occupy a larger portion. Okay, if the larger portion occupy in the oceanic region, then it is called oceanic plate, and if the larger portion occupy inside the continental part, then it is called continental plate. The theory of plate tectonics proposes that the Earth's lithosphere is divided into 7 major and some minor plates. Okay, so the lithosphere of our Earth is divided into 7 major and some minor plates. Young fold mountain ridges, trenches, and or faults surrounded these major plates, and these major plates are mainly first one, the Antarctica and the surrounding oceanic plates. Okay, first one is Antarctica and the surrounding oceanic plates. Second one, North American, that is including Western Atlantic floor separated from the South America plate along the Caribbean island. Okay, so that is the second one, North American plate. Now, South American plate, that is Western Atlantic floor separated from the North America plate along the Caribbean island. Now, fourth one is Pacific plate. Next one is India, Australia, New Zealand plate. Sixth one is Africa with the Eastern Atlantic floor plate. Seventh one is Eurasian and the adjacent oceanic plate. Okay, so these are the important 7 plates. Okay, now some important minor plates. These are some of the important minor plates. First one, Cocos plate, then Nazca plate, Arabian plate, Philippine plate. Okay, now there's also, okay, look at this 4 first. So these are some of the important minor plates. The Cocos plate is between Central America and Pacific plate. Nazca plate is between South America and Pacific plate. Arabian plate is mostly the Saudi Arabian landmass, and the Philippine plate is between the Asiatic and Pacific plate. Now next one is the Caroline plate, that is between the Philippine and the Indian plate. Okay, that is north of New Guinea. Now these plates have been constantly moving over the globe throughout the history of the Earth. It is not the continent that moves as believed by Wegener. Continents are part of a plate. That plate and what moves is the plate. Okay, so we know the continents are the part of a plate. And where is the movement happens? The movement happens inside the plate. Moreover, it may be noted that all the plates without exceptions have moved in the geological past and shall continue to move in the future as well. Wegener had thought of all the continents to have initially existed as a supercontinent in the form of Pangaea. However, later discoveries revealed that the continental masses resting on the plates have been wandering all through the geological period, and the Pangaea was the result of the converging of different continental masses that were part of one or the other plates. Scientists using the paleomagnetic data have determined the position held by each of the present continental landmass in different geological periods. And positions of the Indian subcontinent, that is mostly the Peninsula India, is traced with the help of the rocks analyzed from the Nagpur area. There are 3 types of plate boundaries. Okay, so next one is plate boundaries. First one is divergent boundaries, where new crust is generated as the plates pull away from each other. The sides where the plate moves away from each other are called spreading sides. The best known example of divergent boundaries is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. At this, the American plate is separated from the Eurasian and African plates. Okay, so what is divergent boundaries? Assume this is a plate and this is another plate. Okay, so in divergent boundaries, what happened? This plate moved to this area and this moved to this. Okay, opposite direction. They became divergent. That is called divergent boundaries. Now, second one is convergent boundaries, where the crust is destroyed as one plate divide another one. Okay, so what is convergent? Where the crust is destroyed as one plate dived under another. The location where sinking of a plate occurs is called a subduction zone. Okay, so the sinking plate, the location of the sinking plate, that is called subduction zone. There are three ways in which convergence can occur. First one, between an oceanic and continental plate. Second one, between two oceanic plates. And final one, between two continental plates. Okay, so there are three types of convergence: ocean-continental convergence, ocean-ocean convergence, and continental-continental convergence. Okay, so that is the convergent boundaries. Here what happened? First one, this is one plate and this is another. They come together. Then what happened? Next step, they become collide each other. And finally what happened? The denser one down. Okay, and this zone, this area is called subduction zone. Okay, this area is called subduction zone. That is the convergent boundaries. Now final one is transform boundaries, where the crust is neither produced or nor destroyed as the plates slide horizontally past each other. Okay, so here the plates slide horizontally past each other. Transform faults are the planes of separation generally perpendicular to the mid-oceanic ridges. As the eruptions do not take all along the entire crust at the same time, there is a differential movement of a portion of the plate away from the axis of the earth. Also, the rotation of the earth has its effects on the separated blocks of the plate portions. Now, rates of plate movement. The strips of normal and reverse magnetic field that parallel the mid-oceanic ridges help scientists determine the rates of plate movement. These rates vary considerably. The Arctic ridge has the slowest rate, that is less than 2.5 cm per year, and the East and East Pacific rise near Easter Island in the South Pacific about 3,400 km west of Chile has the fastest rate, that is more than 50 cm per year. Okay, so this move 15 cm per year. Okay, that is the fastest rate. Now, force for the plate movement. At the time that Wegener proposed this theory of continental drift, most scientists believed that the Earth was a solid and it's a motionless body. However, concept of seafloor spreading and the unified theory of plate tectonics have emphasized that both the surface of Earth and the interior are not static and motionless, but they are dynamic. The fact that the plates move is now a well accepted fact. Okay, so this is a well accepted fact. The mobile rock beneath the rigid plates is believed to be moving in a circular manner. The heated material rises to the surface, spreads and begins to cool, and then sinks back to the deeper depths. This cycle is repeated over and over to generate what scientists call a conventional cell or convective flow. Heat within the earth comes from two main sources, radioactive decay and residual heat. Arthur Holmes first considered this idea in 1930s, which later influenced Harry Hess thinking about seafloor spreading. The slow movement of hot, softened mantle that lies below the rigid plates is the driving force behind the plate movement. Now, movement of the Indian plate. Okay, the Indian plate including Peninsula India and the Australian continental portions. Okay, so the Indian plate includes mainly the Peninsula India and the Australian continental portions. The subduction zone along the Himalayas forms the northern plate boundary in the form of continent-continent convergence. Okay, so what is happening here? The continent convergence is happening. In the east, it extends through Rakioma mountains of Myanmar towards the islands arc along the Java Trench. The eastern margin is a spreading site lying to the east of Australia in the form of an ocean ridge in Southwest Pacific. The western margin follows Kirtar Mountains of Pakistan and it further extends along with the Makrana coast and joins the spreading side from the Red Sea Rift southeastward along the Chagos Archipelago. The boundary between India and the Antarctic plate is also marked by oceanic ridge, that is a divergent boundary, and it's running in roughly west-east direction and merging into the spreading side, that is a little south of New Zealand. India was a large island situated off the Australian coast in the vast ocean. The Tethys Sea separated it from the Asian continent till about 225 million years ago. India is supposed to have started her northward journey about 200 million years ago at the time when Pangaea broke. India collides with Asia about 40-50 million years ago, causing a rapid uplift of the Himalayas. The position of India since about 71 million years till the present shows the position of Indian subcontinent and the Eurasian plate. About 140 million years before the present, the subcontinent was located at south of 50 degrees south latitude. The two major plates were separated by the Tethys Sea and the Tibetan bloc was closer to the Asiatic landmass. During the movement of the Indian plate towards the Eurasian plate, a major event that occurred was the outpouring of lava and formation of the Deccan Traps. This started somewhere around 60 million years ago and continued for a long period of time. Note that the subcontinent was still close to the equator. From 40 million years ago and thereafter the event of formation of the Himalayas took place, scientists believe that the process is still continuing and the height of the Himalaya is rising even to this date. Okay, so that's about this chapter. If you have any doubts, you can comment below. For more videos, do like, share, subscribe.